Welcome back. It is the next page of the offer to purchase in our series of contracts and coffee. I hope you have yours this morning. We are nearly towards the end of the offer to purchase and contract. I know it seems like a lot of videos and a lot of time, but it's a very important document, and believe it or not, this is the condensed version. So anyway, we are now on page 7 of the contract. We actually finished up page 6, but I wanted to kind of revisit page 6 into page 7 and talk about the subject of assessments, special assessments, both proposed and confirmed. So at the end of page 6, start of page 7, it says that there are or are not any proposed or confirmed assessments. Well, remember earlier in the contract we said that if there are confirmed assessments will be paid by the seller prior to closing. If there are any proposed assessments will be paid by the buyer once those information are finally completed and finalized. So one thing you may see as a broker, as it has been a historical practice, if you were in the field, you may run into folks who are trained to put in those blanks here at the top of page 7 and the bottom of page 6, none known, if so, seller to pay. Well, that's not the appropriate way to fill it out. It should say either none or list the ones that are there. The reason being is the contract specifies, for example, that if there are proposed special assessments, the buyer will pay those. If you put none known, if so, seller to pay, you're actually contradicting that provision in the contract, and by amending the contract, that's actually a practice of law without a license, so that can get you in a lot of trouble. So follow directions. When in doubt, reference the guidelines that I told you about, the 2G, and look at that section in the guidelines, and it'll tell you, and it even says it on there, if none, put none. So address that appropriately. Then we get into the HOA section, paragraph D. It says there is or is not a homeowners association, and if there is, just a reminder to the buyer, you need to make sure that you comb through those HOA documents to make sure that you can do all that you need to do, that you're aware of the rules and regulations. Are there any parking restrictions, use restrictions? What are the bylaws? Are there any restrictions on fencing, type of fencing, architectural review board, things like that. So HOA documents are very important. And then just underneath that, it also gives you some information to list the name of the HOA and the contact person there, so that you can give them a call. And it's always a great idea just to give them a call, say, hey, I'm looking to purchase a home there. We're in a contract. Can you tell me about the house? Or tell me about the neighborhood, the HOA, the restrictions. How are you guys financially solvent? Do you have money in the bank if we need to do a assessment, or if we get sued and go to court, is there reserves for that? Who's your property manager for your HOA? So those are always great questions to investigate as a buyer looking to purchase a property. We are now down to paragraph 8 of the offer to purchase. Under paragraph 8, it says the seller's obligation. It talks about the evidence of title. In short, this section says that the seller is going to be giving clear title to the buyer. It goes on to say that if the seller should have any hiccups or clouds on title that should show up during the title search, that they are actually required to incur any costs necessary to clear up those title defects. So any cloud on title would be cleared by the seller, and therefore made available as a clear title to the buyer. Access to the property is one that we run into under 8C. Remind your sellers that they do have to provide access. It is a contractual part of the process where if the buyer gives reasonable notice, the seller will in fact allow them to come for the purpose of investigation, inspections, whatever they need to do. So that is under paragraph C on page 7. And that one's actually pretty short. So believe it or not, that is the end of page 7. And now we're going to bump over to page 8 of the offer to purchase. Refill your coffee, and I'll see you soon.